City of Stevens Point Board of Water and Sewerage Commissioners meeting, recorded May 8, 2023.
And it's noon, so let's begin. Roll call will be taken as typical. Minutes of the Water and Sewer Commission of April 10th. Any suggestions, changes, corrections? If not, a motion to approve the order.
So moved, Nachman.
Second, Schmidt.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Claims for the water department. Questions? If there are none, we'll go on to the sewage department claims.
I have a question on number 5762. The garage door replacement.
This was part of our approved capital for 2023, mostly on the doors of the garage, kitty corner, the old utility garage, and now the sewer garage.
Okay.
Yep. I think our capital might have been around 35.
Yeah, it's like
25?
30, it's like 35. It's got a man door to replace yet on the
Okay.
Other questions on sewage? Okay, if not, let's go on to stormwater.
Number 57759, Spectrum Insurance Group.
Yeah, so this is our business insurance. There are some things that are handled through the state insurance pool, and then there's some stuff that isn't. And so everything else from a business perspective, we have through Spectrum for the most part.
Okay, I was just wondering how long a time period that this payment covers. It's a month, a year? Okay.
I think I recall that it covers the fire insurance on this building and the sewage department.
This is, yeah, so we have vehicle, business liability. I think the buildings are covered under the state plan mostly. Is that right? Buildings are, yeah.
Okay. To fire claims. Pretty short list. So a motion to approve all sets of claims is in order.
move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Bill credit for Four Seasons on Torn Road.
So, bringing this forward because it's a pretty large one, but there's no contesting this really. We've been working with them for a long time, old owners, new owners, through the ownership transition. And with all the metering technology between what they have and we have, our policy, your policy, the one that we enforce for a long time, has been on something where we know that there's a leak and we know that it's not going into the sewer, we'll look at the data that supports the credit once the leak is fixed. And they do that occasionally here. And upon the fixing of a couple big leaks, we can then backcast that water that went into the ground, not into the sewer, and figure out volumetrically what they should not have paid for. This is that credit. It's actually already been issued to the account, but it's a large dollar amount, so I wanted you guys to see it and know.
So you do not need us to take action on it?
I prefer you do. It's just one of those that this isn't a request from them as much as it is me telling you we issued a big credit because it was due. You know?
So are the leaks gonna be fixed in the future?
Yeah, so this is as a result of leaks that were fixed, and there may be more. And if they fix them and it's very clear what impact that fix had, then we can look at more. But this one was, like I said, we've been working with them for a long time on this and waiting for the data, and the data came through, and it's very clear after the repair didn't go through the sewer.
So a motion is in order at Joel's request.
Move for approval, Nachman.
Second, Ray.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Same sign, motion carried. Position evaluations.
So this item is going to personnel tonight also. Wanted to highlight a few things. There's some background here to talk through. I originally went forward requesting, basically 3 positions that looked at. It would have been the administrative services manager, which is Mary, the admins in the front, which is Jamie and Jen and Pam and Ann and Marissa, and airport manager. Those were for a number of reasons. Mary's and the other admins have been misrepresented on that plan for a long time, and it's been a problem that we've been continually trying to kind of look at and solve. Because there were a few, it turned out to be relatively efficient to have them look at a broader spectrum of the department. So the stuff in to the fact that everything we send out right now, we don't get qualified applicants for and stuff like that. So hiring's hard, which means retaining is going to be hard, right? We can't not address the good employees we have. So I'll walk through the data here a little bit and then tell you what's next. Baker, yeah.
I have just quick, so when you say that Mary's been misrepresented on the plan, what does that mean?
It means that we have pretty good industry data that says we know what that position should be paid.
Okay.
And I think that past efforts through the wage studies and everything else have overlooked some really important things in that job, in these jobs.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about Jason on the airport agenda because that's probably more appropriate. But when you look at internal equity issues, so that's one component of it, and then your industry is the other. So we have really good industry data, and we have knowledge on our internal comparables, and we have more to do than what's here. It's just that these are the data points that they gave us, that says here's the problems we know of in your current ranking, right? So I'll tell you about kind of what my next requests are going to be after this.
Okay.
But this is all kind of also shaken out because everybody acknowledges that 2023 was a hard budget year, and I'm talking on the levy side, right? So in a 8% inflationary year, they gave 3% COLA, the cost of living adjustment to employees. So automatically, you know, we're going to be down. But one of the issues we're facing is that the city has paid a lot of attention. It's not an issue, it's a good thing. They've paid a lot of attention to the bottom 2/3 of the pay plan for the last several times they've looked at it. And so that's why you see most of the things they're finding off are at the top third or so. Nonetheless, that doesn't mean everything's exactly right. We had a meeting today with department heads, the mayor, comptroller, our wage consultant, to talk through what this means and what does the rest of the city do because of the fact that this was specific to utilities. What's next? What can we do? What might be still wrong? What does this data mean? That kind of thing, and I can walk you through this a little bit. We're probably not, I'm not in any hurry to adopt new roles or new titles, but the reason those are on there is because the stuff on the left fits with our city structure and the stuff on the right fits with our industry. So one of the things that I was pretty insistent on is that when you compare us around the state, whether it's to other cities around here, our list of comparables, our titles don't mesh with what other titles are. And so I wanted them to know that because in a lot of cases, you do have a water director or wastewater director doing exactly what these two guys are doing. We don't call them that here, right? And that's because a lot of times my title would be general manager or something else. It doesn't even matter. But that played a role for a lot of years in kind of that being off a bit. And so we put those other titles in there, and I don't care if they get adopted or not. The way it pans out, if you look at these changes, so current grade and proposed grade, this is one of the ones that I told you I started this whole effort on to fix was the, administrative services in the AWWA data, they call that a customer care rep senior. Again, I don't know that the title matches, but that's the one that matches their roles the best. That data looked to me like they should be placed in J. But when I got the information back from Baker Tilly, let me show you. It's not in there. It was their in-house data. Stevens Point calculates out at 92% of the national average. So if you have jobs that represent the whole U.S., what they're going to do is take 92% of that and say this is where you guys belong. And they have that number for all our comparables: Marshfield, Wausau, Wisconsin Rapids, all those. So Wausau is at about 95, Rapids is at about 91. So when they use that data, they adjust for that. So getting the administrative services specialist up to J, the data we had for our industry supported that very well. And then when she combined it with the cities and operations that the city has previously determined we use as our comparables, and then applied the 92% to it, it was 0.1% off. It was the closest one in the whole thing. So when I was asking then about not just that data, but about some internal equity issues, the commentary I got back was, well, so we're doing that based on the scoring system grade we have for that position already. What might be happening if you know you have some equity issues is that whole thing needs to go itself through a little process, through a position assessment questionnaire, through a job description questionnaire if they want to do that, where you essentially act like I have a new position here, or at least this doesn't represent what they do anymore. You need to grade it. And in that grading system, they have 9 compensable areas that they say, you know, job responsibility, and then how much of are you specific to you, to your work group, to your department, to the city as a whole, and all those things get graded, and those things add up to one score. Those scores are between like 1 and 900, and then you put that and you say this is your score. Your score is 499, and then they can attach that to a grade on our pay plan, right? So with this one, the next step is to do that. It's to do the PAQ process and to say this needs to be further reclassified, because this data represents the market rate for essentially where positions are now. And the fact that this doesn't match kind of with our industry data says that one needs to be reevaluated. The other one is engineer, but I think we're going to run that one through the city because this is a position that we share with City Hall, with the engineering department. It did go up to where it was previously, and I don't really know why it was knocked down. R is a grade below. So we're looking at that one too, but internally, the one that I need to send through the process is this one right here. Additionally, there's some positions where between 3 and 4 positions that in the future I'd like to propose a senior step to. You know, the real meat of our department is this top role here, the admins and our operators. You take those 2 groups and put them together, and they are the bulk of our employees from a utility perspective, and they're kind of our lifeblood, right? And working on representing them right is what we need to do all the time. So for those operators and the GIS techs and the inspection techs, which only the positions, not all of them are on here, so there's more. What I'd like to do is propose a slide in position after certain benchmarks are reached. Because again, when you look at industry data, they'll have wages that represent a entry-level employee, kind of 0 to 5 years, and then they have wages that represent 5 and beyond. And all employment fields are suffering with short-term employees now, right? They come and go 3, 4, 5 years, right? And in recognition of that, the ones that are staying around longer generally know the content better. They have all their certifications. In your case, it takes what, 4 to 6 years to get all your certifications?
Correct.
So that recognizes that you've put in the time to get those state issued certifications. So what I'd like to do is propose a role that doesn't take committee action to go into. It takes benchmarks accomplished, 5 years of employment, all the certifications and or other education we require to be fully in that position. And for those that are utility operator here, GIS tech, and actually inspection tech. And if there's one relevant for this position, I do that too. So that's coming. That's the next step. And then what I wanted to do is, because we don't talk a lot about it here, I wanted to be clear about, we don't normally see a lot of this stuff at the commission, but it has been made very clear that the commission has the authority to act on this stuff. I mean, this is the dollars and cents and personnel of this commission, right? But we've been acting on personnel matters at the personnel committee for a lot of years and not here. So it's kind of a, hey, let's recognize this. We're gonna act on this stuff at both places. So I'd like you guys to understand this stuff as well, because I think your recommendation going forward is the most relevant as far as where we are from a utility. So this is new to us. From the last time we would have seen stuff like this, Paul, you'd remember it was pre-2000. So it's been a long time since we've really looked at this stuff from a commission perspective, but it's not because there's no authority there. It was just a structure change, that kind of a why structure change, one that I can't explain. So for these positions, I wanted to show you how we do things. This control point right here, and this is the whole city pay plan. This is not specific to utilities. The control point, step 6 on this plan, is where if you find that a certain job grades out at somewhere near $71,000, you grade it here based on the control point. So that would be a grade N, right? So that's when you research it and you find what a position is worth, you place it on the control point. And so when we look at moving a job, you do it from control point to control point. And you'll see that I've kind of color coded everything here so you can see how it works. So these are actually new titles, not old titles. So the red outline here, the one that we're gonna let probably City Hall and Engineering handle, it's a 1 grade move. And because when you move from 1 grade to the next, the admin policy says you go to the first step that provides at least a 5% increase, because you could actually go below, right? So by moving grades, if you slid all the way back to step 1, you could actually go below where you are. So the policy is to say, no, we got to recognize where your step is, your appropriate grade rather, and then put you in the first step that gets you at least 5% above, just to recognize that there's a reason we're moving you. We're not going to penalize you at the same time. So when you look at the shaded stuff, like here, engineer, just 1 down, it's pretty simple. This kind of is chief operators currently, called superintendent. That is a 2-step jump, and to get it to the one where it provides that. And this doesn't speak to any employee in particular, because the employee in this role might be here, right? And so then you'd move to the grade 2 down that provides 5%, or they might be here and they just go straight down because we don't hire at step 1 anymore. The city policy change, we hire at step 2. So if you did have somebody here, you just move straight down, unless, because these are 6% apart. Water, wastewater, these are current superintendents. You can see that move is 1 down also, indicating there isn't a ton of market difference there now versus what's proposed. Our biggest one, like I told you, the reason that I got into this is the blue outline here, that was proposed to be called Director of Accounting and HR. It's Administrative Services Manager. That's a pretty big move. And that's the one, along with the others that I'm proposing the PAQ on. That's one of the reasons we got into this. Another problem, which means I don't know how they'll address this, is that the GM job, which is director currently, that's my position, goes to a point where they haven't established it yet. The gray stuff on there isn't on the city pay plan. So that may be that the city's taken on a whole effort to create a whole new pay plan structure. And at that time, there could be all sorts of things happening. When I first reached out to Baker Tilly, their first comment to me was, you may need separate pay plans now. This is complicated. So that may be coming also. to break it right down to numbers, these are positions with current titles, the people in them, their current grade and step, and then if it was adopted, their proposed grade and step. And this is the impact to the department here is 7%. An average of a 7% change of these people, it'd be very, very low across the department. And these are the current wages of the individuals involved and the proposed wages of the individuals involved, and the differences there. I wanted to be clear in writing here, in addition to what I told you is my plan for doing the PAQs, it's actually not written here for the administrative specialist. We're requesting that this stuff gets considered because if we're recognizing that there's some positions in the wrong grades, they need to be addressed, and I think that will get support at personnel as well. But this is what I mentioned with the senior positions. We're going to look into that, and because we don't have that structure currently, so I have to propose something that's a little more detailed because I'm creating positions that there aren't currently people in, but there are several people in the department who would qualify for them immediately and some that wouldn't, right? So that's coming in the future. If the city engages in a develop of a new matrix or a pay plan, obviously we'll be looking to participate in that, because if it stays together, that's fine. If it separates out, well, then that's fine. The engineer position needs further review, and I think that will run through engineering department. And what we'll be looking for there is that prior to that review, there's two different ways we hire above step 2. One of them is through committee. So tonight and here today, I mean, because we do share this position, so it kind of is relevant to both. There needs to be committee action to hire above step 3. Step 3 you can hire at with a meeting of the department head, the chair of personnel, the HR manager, and the mayor. And when that's needed, we usually just set up a quick Zoom. We talk about why step 2 isn't appropriate. And a lot of times it has to do with experience in the position, who you're hiring. You know, you're not getting somebody, you know, green that's never done this position. You're getting somebody with 10 years of experience or something like that. And so that on the engineer one, we're going to be requesting step 5, which is done all the time in some other departments because of compression issues with the people you supervise, maybe making almost what you do type of thing. And then the airport manager, which we'll talk about in the next meeting, starting at step 3, which I think committee action definitely supersedes that informal group. But because of the other changes that we'll talk about, we're looking for step 3, not step 2 there. So I'm at the last page of that. I'm sure that's a lot. What can I explain or answer, or
That is a lot.
anything else? Yeah. And it's actually why I think this needed to come in a couple steps, because there's more to come. And I mean, we got to bite off the pieces we have when we have them. And so with this stuff accomplished, it makes the next steps stand on their own and be a little bit easier to digest, to say, here's how we got here.
Well, I think it's pretty hard for us as commissioners to second those who have worked on this and had the benefit of all the comparisons. And since we haven't acted on this in the form of a motion since 2000, do you want us to do that now?
Yeah, I would, because I'd like to tell personnel committee how you guys acted. Because I mean, at the different committee levels, even recently, they've talked about how, you know, this commission does have the authority to do these things. And there's really hardly anything that is ever contentious, right? It's just not.
Sure.
And we're not trying to make this that way either. But I will report to them tonight how you guys act.
Does anybody have any questions?
I've got a question. Is it important for us to get these new salaries in place before we do our rate studies?
Yeah. So the one thing that I have, yeah. I mean, I don't think we've ever tried to time the two together.
Yeah.
Right. We do have a little update on rates in the director's report. I don't have a memo or anything put together. But it's relevant. I can tell you I'm not concerned about the rates covering that. And the other thing is we're down positions right now. You know, the other thing, to be honest with you, we need to backfill a minimum of 2 and then probably create a 4th more technical position in the back, perhaps. We're trying to figure out how to fill all the needs there. But we're down a management role right now. We're technically down 2 operators. And so, I mean, we need the right structure in place, because I didn't want to come forward with everything all right now. And that would really complicate things. What are we hiring on the old plan, the new, you know? So I appreciate that, like, perspective. But I don't think that we need to worry about the rates handling the changes. Yeah. Because again, that dollar amount is spread out over prices. Do we bill any of that? Yeah, it'd just be the 3: water, wastewater, stormwater. So it's a small hit to each one.
Is the vacant, construction and maintenance supervisor, is that Craig's?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Other questions?
I guess just a quick one. So in essence, we're kind of doing catch-up, right? Because we haven't,
Yeah.
I mean, because when you look at a 17% increase, that's,
Yeah.
we should be. And for the quality of work and
Yeah.
everything, it's hard to replace that person. So I think I
All right.
appreciate that you're recognizing that.
Yeah.
To keep and
What I'm appreciative of is the city gave me the opportunity to talk directly to the wage consultant in a very thorough manner, which hasn't happened in the past as much. It's like, here's the data, chew it up and spit it back. And that is one of the positions where we've got huge internal equity issues, because that position handles the duties of several at City Hall. I mean, and we're not, you know, when all things considered, it's not like a little operation, right? There's 6 enterprises here. And so there's the HR stuff, there's the accounting stuff, there's what a finance manager would do. I mean, I actually had to use 4 of our industry job descriptions to combine into that one. And so that's the one that they put the most work into. So yeah, you're right. We're kind of accounting for some things that have not had the attention they needed.
I was wondering if the motion that you're looking for were to do the proposed position retitling.
The titles, I don't think actually need motions, because technically when we do evals every year, they're okay with us changing titles as appropriately. We just don't do it kind of willy-nilly, because it creates a problem across the city. So, for example, Eric and Chris are both superintendents, and they're division heads of this department. And when you look at another department where they've got a superintendent that is running a separate division of that department, it is cleaner to keep them titled the same, so people understand kind of stationing in the city, right? It's cleaner to keep my title director too. But for the sake of getting the right data to support what they actually do, we had to look at the titling that is more industry-wide appropriate. And that for them is directors, and for me is not, right? So that's why we put those out there. A lot of the talk this morning was that would complicate things. I'm like, I don't have any like real care about that. You can call me intern if you want to, right? It doesn't change my job, right? So, and so I'm not pushing for the title changes. It's just the recognition in step or in grade, and then the steps fall in based on policy, and that's what the blue versus green is. So that's actually that's the big ask, and then recognizing these other points here.
Just to follow that up, it would seem that the titling, though, comparing within the industry, is really the pool that we would recruit.
Yeah, right. I agree.
Individuals.
It's been a complicated issue over the years, because during our first 2 pay plans, which would have been 2007 and 2011, I know that titles were an issue, because back then, consultants were handing out their data, like, here's your data, and we'd compare across cities, and the same titles received the same points, regardless of the fact that you might be a department head and you might not, and you might have these responsibilities and you might not. So back, years ago, it was an issue. Now we've been trying to battle that for a while now, and part of what happened out of this that was really good is that I could give specifics, and I'm like, okay, you've got this person in this city and you're comparing us to that city. Well, that city, we know them personally. Here's the individual who does this work. They're not titled the same. So don't use the person that's, you know, one step subordinate to them as the comparable for our guys. So we've worked it out so that the recognition is there, but we were unable to do that until we got like direct access. So I think that the retitling is appropriate, but I do understand that it makes it a struggle when you look at the city as a whole. And I think some cities are like that. They'll use titles at certain positions and they'll avoid others. I mean, everybody's a little different, but in the industry, we're a little off. We're a step off. So, yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, you know, you're saying this go around, the door has been open for you to introduce it,
Mm-hmm.
door shut.
Yeah, right. And I think that, like I said, I don't actually need any formal committee discussion or direction or approval to change titles. I think that's more of a in-house administratively making sure that we're cooperating with other departments. What do we do so that nothing gets too messy, right? Yeah. Compromise.
All right. A motion is in order to approve.
So moved. Knockman.
I'll second Schmidt.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
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 All same sign. Motion carried. Surprised we didn't have a vehicle use policy prior to this. It looks pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah, it is straightforward. This is one of the things that actually came up when looking at kind of a total compensation perspective. You know, it comes into play in a lot of different areas, and really what it is right here: on-call, emergency, safety, economic considerations. I don't know that everybody will want to use the vehicle use policy for on-call, but the on-call is a little different. No, I mean, because we do have some reasonable expectations on where people live, and I'm not concerned about where anybody who's ever on call lives at the moment. So if somebody who is on call, knowing that we've got a lot going on, wants to take a vehicle back and forth when they're expecting that, I think we should allow that. It also allows for a quicker response, to be honest, because if you're living on the east side of town and a call comes in on the east side of town, you got to drive all the way in, grab a truck and go back out, and then do it in the reverse order to get your own vehicle. So I don't think it's anything we require to say if you're on call, you take a city vehicle, because that's not something I want to do. But I would like to look at how we make that available to the different people that are just super responsive to our operation. You know, it's not anything that management as a whole, the commission, the city as a whole has ever had to worry about. Our guys are super responsive to the operation and the after hours needs. So that this is just another tool if it seems like, hey, this is going on and we should be doing this. There are weeks when, you know, whether it's, hey, the dryer's upset, it's down right now, but the dryer's upset, I know we're gonna get 4 calls tonight. Well, take a work vehicle if you want, you know, so you're not doing all that on your own. The emergency and safety stuff, I think that this comes into play when we have weather that we know is coming. Sometimes when we were expecting really bad stuff, we've actually spread equipment out over the city so that if something really bad happened, all our stuff wasn't trapped down here. And that can come into play to say, hey, we might get hit really hard tonight. Superintendents, chiefs, foremen, take a work vehicle home, you know, even to the point of have a chainsaw in it, you know, that kind of thing. This allows for that not being a one-off decision. And then economic considerations is more like the fact that, you know, I take a fair amount of mileage off the department and it's not the most economical thing for the department to do. If I don't have to go back and forth on everything and there's just an understanding that that stuff's okay rather than mileage using a city vehicle, and that they can be at your residence, which is really what this is about, that it'd actually be probably more affordable for the department. On top of the fact that those are, I think the way it happens a lot is conferences are one thing, but I look on my calendar at the meetings that I have scheduled. When I look at mileage, I don't write down anything else, so I'm covering a half, a third, something like that. And this gets rid of that concern. So those are the things that this accounts for. But like you said, pretty straightforward.
Questions? Not,
Is this gonna complicate things for you guys?
I don't think so. The only one thing it adds is how to deal with the tax benefit, and Mary, you got any concerns about that?
No.
Okay.
Good.
okay, a motion to approve is in order.
So move.
Second?
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign, motion carried. Water supply and distribution reports, Eric?
Hi, everybody. Pretty straightforward month for pumpage. Tonight we start our hydrant flushing week, tonight through Thursday night. You'll be seeing guys go through your neighborhood for flushing. Other than that, construction season's picked up from last year. A1 has started again in the neighborhood of Portage and Third, Meadow, Franklin, Washington. They're finishing that. Hopefully all the utility work will be done. And restoration around the Memorial Day weekend. The other construction project, which is Minnesota, Algoma, west of Metro Market, that area, Texas, north of Jefferson, that starts next week. The contract will be moving in these that week and the week after. That's all I had on distribution or construction. Any questions?
And those are the only, construction project we're doing this year?
Yeah, yep. We have some ditching and swaling. That would be Joel's neighborhood south is going on right now, the extension from last year, Ridge Road, neighborhood Janik.
Yep.
And then down by, Indiana and Channel Drive, that neighborhood street is getting done, ditching and just surface work, a little bit of storm work, but that's about it. That'll be probably a later summer project.
And we're wrapping up the stuff that was left over from last year at the same time. So there is a lot of construction going on, some of it carryover. Yep.
I just wanted to compliment on the number of notifications I got of the flushing.
Oh.
I mean, I don't think anybody should have questions. I've seen it on social media. I've got emails and texts, so good job.
Good deal.
People should be aware.
Hopefully. Any other questions?
Okay, on to sewage treatment, Chris.
All right, April was a good month. We got through the month with, all of our dryer is still down. We've been working with Andrews, the company that made the dryer, to figure out exactly what needs to be done for the repair to make it up and running. Looks like about 12 weeks from the date of order is when we'll be able to be up and operational again. I'm in the process of trying to figure out what we have to do and what would be nice to have, and trying to figure out price-wise as to what we should do. As I get further into that, Joel and I will talk about it and come up with the and then next month we'll come to you with kind of what our decision was, rather than holding it up another 4 weeks. Probably get it moving a little sooner than that. We did have the American Council of Engineering, was it?
Construction, right?
Engineering companies, I think,
Oh, companies, okay.
award banquet a week and a half ago. Our dryer project won the Best of State award. So
Awesome.
there are 9 other projects that were in that group. So it's a
Pretty cool.
pretty big deal in the engineering world. So,
Good job.
other than that, that's all I've got for you today.
All right, construction and maintenance, Joel?
Nothing written, just, Eric kind of touched on it with all of our construction stuff going on. The crews that we normally report on in this are busy kind of preparing for those, right? So on the projects that involve pavement and swaling or just pavement, typically we don't have a big bid project, but our crews are involved in adjusting manholes. We'll get in there and repair or replace valves before they do their paving so that we can survive the life of another road before we need to dig it and stuff like that. So it's really, and we're working on coordinating with the contractor to put the new 2-inch main up Spruce Street to help with our lead gooseneck replacement. So it's a lot of things in concert with larger construction activity right now.
I just had a, issue that was brought up at a McDill Lake District meeting last week, and there's some, at the lift station on Heffron Loop, there's some,
Trees down?
there's a tree down in
Yeah.
the neighborhood, and
Yeah, I got a call last week, or an email, I can't remember what it was. I let the crews know to go take a look. They claim it's the Parks tree, so I guess I gotta follow up with Parks and see who's gonna point the finger. But, so, we'll figure out whose it is and get it taken care of.
okay, and then the second question, in that same area, is there's two little, temporary no parking signs there. Is that because there's not a sign?
Or they just,
Yeah.
that's to not block our,
Those are still up?
Yeah.
Good.
okay. I think we were gonna put permanent signs up there.
Nobody stole them yet.
Oh.
We were just worried because this is also a common access point for like fishing and stuff.
Yeah.
And we didn't want people parking in front of the lift station, cause then we can't access it, so I think the temporary one is to replace
Yeah,
them.
the ground was frozen when we realized we had a problem. So now, with that reminder, that's a very good reminder that we need to get some signs put in, some permanent ones.
Yeah.
That's what I speculated to the individual.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
I had a couple of compliments for, the construction that was done over in the Portage Street area. It was just, came out very, very good.
Oh, that would've been last year's reconstruct stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. That's usually, it's funny how when everything's buttoned up, there's usually a lot of quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's usually pleased when it's done, yeah.
All right, on to the purchase of the push camera.
Yeah, so, Eric put a memo in here. This is one of the things that we didn't put in. You'll remember we have a relatively large purchase of a new vehicle that has new televising equipment in it. It's a van instead of a trailer. It's on our capital, and that's been ordered, and it's, I can't remember the timeline, but it's on its way. We didn't order a push camera with that because I don't think we knew what we wanted at the time, and, the crews have been spending time, I think they've demoed 3 or 4 now, something like that. And, this is the type of thing where you're dealing with something very local and maybe small. It's not a matter of, you know, down the manhole, 20 feet down, 400 feet up with a camera and all this, like, taking notes and everything. Sometimes we need to be able to inspect something just visually, and it can even be smaller. I believe this will get us in a 3-inch pipe, where our normal one, I think, 8 inches, probably the smallest, maybe 6 if you push it. But we do have a lot of instances, especially with all the boring that's gone on in town with TDS and stuff the last few years, where, having a little, it basically is something like on a little dolly, right? It's something you can handle yourself. It's not truck mounted. You can get it to a catch basin, send it up the catch basin, see, oh yeah, there's an orange conduit going through our pipe. Or you can, we have a lot of issues out in Eagle Point subdivision with the force mains out there, and we've got no equipment to get in there, so when we have a problem and we suspect what's going on, we have no way of looking at what's going on. So this actually, is a capital amendment request, to be honest, to say we'd like to add this to the new televising equipment we'll get, because it'll be a good asset with that. It is separate also. It doesn't have to be on that vehicle. But this is, another tool to be able to do what we need to do, and this will actually save probably, over time, it'll probably save its value in not digging. Because if we can't see, we gotta dig. If we can see, and we know that, hey, that's not our problem, it's not what we thought, it'll save a patch, it'll save some curb, it'll save a structure. So not only that, but time, and that's one of our most expensive things is time, paying people.
I think, remember you saying, maybe last year, that we do occasionally, send a camera up a sewer lateral towards a.
Yeah, and that's one that's kind of attached with our big one. So you pull it up the main, get it to the right spot, and you launch that. And actually, our new equipment will have an even better lateral launch camera, because our current one is kind of hard to use. So that's when you're already in the main. And this is more like, okay, I can stand here and push it up the pipe that I need to see.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Further questions? Not a motion is in order.
I'd like to move for approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
All same sign. Motion carried. Ditching work is next.
Yeah, so, this is a fun one. I'm actually gonna turn the layers off so you can see the photo better. This is the, Stevens Point Area Soccer Complex. This is Sandpiper. Fleet Farm is just over here. So this ditch, right here, which is just that really dark looking line, is ours starting right here, and it flows this way. 4 years ago, I think it was now, we went through a pretty large process where we rented equipment, we put in a haul road, we graded things out. We have easements on this side of this thing to maintain it, to clear this out, and it's already back bad. And so eventually our hope is to get this in a pipe, or actually two pipe, side by side, separate structures and everything, so that we can maintain one and it can flow through the other. Because this is becoming such a maintenance issue for us that we're spending money we could be putting into construction on maintaining this thing. And so I think our total expenses were probably over $35,000 the other year just to do this, and now 4 years in, we're looking at needing to do it again. So we worked with a contractor on saying, okay, if we start, here-ish, I don't recall, where'd we decide at this crossing? I think it was here, and up and around to here on another cleaning effort. And then I do have some quotes from him on a seasonal approach to spraying, because what we didn't do is spray. We've never maintained a ditch by spraying before. But some local experience with landowners upstream of here, they found it to be very effective. So once you put the effort into mechanically clearing it, getting in there either in the fall or in the spring, or both if it's required, and spraying back the vegetation, will maintain that ditch line. And so this quote is to basically do this maintenance, and then we'll keep an eye on it and spray it on a appropriate interval until we can find, because I think this project, to put that in a pipe, would be a good candidate for a lot of the funding that's out there as it relates to urban runoff type things. So I think we can find funding for that. It's a process of doing it, and then you're in that application window, the review window, the award window, and then you've got, so when you're looking for outside funding, it's not a matter of just design and build. It's a kind of design, apply, wait, award, finish design, bid, build. It gets more well, you're familiar with using state and federal money, right? There's nothing easy about it. So so that's the hope, and this quote is before you for that maintenance now, because what's happening, this is one example. When we back it up, it's creating some issues, like this is non-tillable some parts of the year because of the fact that it's too wet. And so, there's some legitimate impact on private property because of our section of the ditch.
Does it back up the flow of water simply because of the vegetation growing up on banks of the ditch?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just choking up the flow and sending it back. And the other good thing is that actually, not just so it's not a maintenance issue, but this goes into a pipe right here. So it's ditch till right here. And we can actually gain some depth right here and then lay the pipe super flat, and we can actually gain a little bit of depth there, which should help everybody anyway. And at that point, this is infrastructure that we're really good at maintaining. We can maintain pipe. All this equipment that you approve purchase of, that's pipe, right? Yeah, we can do that, and we can do it well, and we can make sure that, we're not impacting anybody upstream. The other thing it does, and I think what the city would probably take advantage of after the fact, after this is at grade, they may very well run a multi-use path over top of it to get people to the soccer complex off of the road. And that'd be fine by us, because most of our stuff is under pavement anyway, so that's a separate issue.
And the trigger for initiating the design work on this?
Oh, this isn't design, this is just maintenance.
For the
ditch.
No, but for putting the
Oh, yeah.
pipe in.
The trigger for that is gonna be to see which funding we're applying for. So some of them require like a 30% design, which would be really easy. This is just line work, you know, here it is, this depth, this size. And some of them may require different things. So we don't know which funding we're going after yet. I'm working with a consultant on that to see which one is most beneficial. And when we know which one we're going after, then that will trigger the, here's what we gotta prepare to apply, and then we'll go from there.
Well, now, we had a brief discussion before the meeting, and my concern is that the nutrient loading
Yep.
this ditch represents
Yeah.
Clover and McDill Pond.
Yeah, so this is considered a vegetated treatment right now, and that treatment will be gone if we put it in a pipe. I don't know how much treatment it's getting in that stretch, but obviously once you put it in a pipe and it's in the ground, there's no activity, there's no biological component to taking nutrients out. Taking those nutrients out right now and putting them in plants is what's creating our issue. So it's kind of a catch-22. But to your point, and what we talked about earlier, is that I think our opportunity to fix that is down here. Because right now we're going straight through this, and now that the DOT is done with their project here and there's some opportunity here, I think that we'd be able to do something with this facility to actually drop the nutrients out here.
Would the two then
Work together? They certainly can be. And with that in mind, it makes sense that they would be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
you know, what comes through this ditch
Yeah.
ends up in the Clover and
Right.
ends up with a weed cutter
Yeah.
in McDill Pond.
Yep.
Because this is our primary, nutrient load
Mm-hmm.
in that, you know.
At least inside the city. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the nutrients above the outflow are lower than below.
Below it, yeah.
So, and you don't see that change
Yeah.
anywhere before it
Well,
goes under the railroad.
we'll run those two things together then. Yeah. It makes sense to.
Is that area right there that you just had the cursor on, is that, city-owned?
This is DOT right away right here, and this may be city right away. You see so there's a little bit of city, DOT, personal property. There's a lot we could do in that area with, if we got the right to use it, so.
Retention.
Yeah, yeah. There's a good portion of the year where, I think that we wouldn't need to send water down that thing at all. If we get a big enough area there, we can infiltrate it and treat it and let it grow the grass in there, you know, so. Yep.
So I guess we need a motion to approve the ditch work.
I move to approve the ditch maintenance.
Second.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Yeah,
Pose same sign, motion carried. It's sort of a director's report, Joel?
Wanted to update you on rates. There's a bit of a snafu with water rates there. Nothing's changed in February. So, if you recall, we've been borrowing, to get us through a couple years of capital, to let our new rates recover our general fund. I don't think that ended up impacting. So the revenue from that borrowing didn't impact it, thought it did at first. But essentially, when we went in for the simplified rate case, we came in just over the benchmark that they allow to go through a simplified rate case. We're at 6.75% return, and we can't be over 6.5. So this is our last opportunity for a simplified rate case before we need to do a full rate case, because you have to have a full rate case within 5 years or 4? 5 years. You have to have had a full rate case within 5 years of applying for a simplified rate case. And since this came back this way, that would push us into next year, and that would push us outside the window of simplified rate case, and we'll have to do a full rate case. So I think what we need to do on the water side is acknowledge that and get prepared for early next year to initiate a full rate case, so that we can stay on top of things and we don't end up with one of those years where there's a 28% increase, right? I think that, where we're really close, and I wish that they could dial it back to say, okay, well then, actually what it was kind of a test year type thing, right? They put in, the simplified rate case would have been for 8%, and that's what you guys approved. And they said, with that in place, you'll have too high a rate of return. Well, they never do 8%. It's always like, you know, between 3 and 6. And had it been a lower simplified rate case approval, we would have been under the threshold. So I think a lot of people are probably falling into that, and it's kind of a good and a bad thing. What it's doing is they're saying, we were trying to say we want to keep up with where we need to be on expenses and rates and everything. And what they're saying is, you were already kind of caught up and you just went over the line. So had we been at a 6% rate of return with the new 8% rate, they'd have said, yes, you should do a simplified rate case and get the 8% increase. But since they regulate water rates and not the others, we're not able to do that. So the motions in place are appropriate to adjust the other two, and I think water will have to wait till we can do a full rate case. I guess that's the long and short of it. We don't need action. I just needed you, because the actions were subject to PSC approval, and we didn't get that approval.
Right.
So we'll move on with the other two, and we'll have to hold on the water. FYI.
Until when, do you think?
Until we can do a full rate, and actually we could apply for a full rate case now. We just can't do a simplified, and so we'll look into that. And it would be really, it's gonna be funny, because since we know we're just over where we should be, you know, it's gonna come back saying 7%. I mean, I gotta think, but that's gonna cost us $25,000 to do, or something like that. Yeah, right.
Regulation.
It's the regulatory process. Now, the other thing it does do that simplified rate cases do not, when you do simplified rate case, it takes your rates as they're written and does a broad adjustment to everything. So your meter rate, your volumetric rate, everything that's in there will get that 6% adjustment or 8% adjustment or 3% adjustment. When you do a full rate case, they reevaluate everything, and they'll rebalance what is a fixed cost, what's a variable cost. What should this meter rate be versus that meter rate, that kind of thing. So they do relook at everything instead of just doing a generic percentage across the board. So that's a good thing, but that's where we're at. That's all I had.
Okay, so a motion to adjourn is in order. All those in favor, signify by a sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. On to airport.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.